Hi, I'm Eric Folks, and today we're going to talk about working with tables in Smart Notebook 11 and review some features from Smart Notebook 10 that could be valuable in the classroom as well. First, when you're working with tables, know that the proportions are preserved. So let's demonstrate that a little bit. We're going to insert a table, and I can move it around using this little point right here. But when I try to resize it, even if I try to force it vertical and skinny, it's not going to work. It's going to maintain our proportions. We do have the ability to adjust sizes and work with it a little bit, which we'll cover here shortly. Next, you can add individual cell shades and even add the cell shades back after you've used them now in Notebook 11. So let's see how that works. I pick one individual cell, and from the drop down, I'm going to add a cell shade. So in the classroom, I click on it, it reveals what's below, and now in Notebook 11 you have the ability to click on that to put the cell shade back in place. Pretty neat. Next, when a table is selected or individual cells, you can adjust the fill color, line color, text color, or degree of transparency. Let's see what that looks like. So I've selected this individual cell, and from my drop down, I now have the ability to adjust the fill color, the line color, and this is going to apply the line color to the entire table, and the text color. So I still have the ability when working with text in an individual cell to center it, to indent it left and right. There, it didn't want to go left because I had already centered it, so let's put it all the way to the left. Now we can do little minor incremental adjustments with the indent. We can also adjust the degree of transparency. Okay, this is a neat feature. You have the ability to split individual cells into multiple cells and customize each one of those. So I'm going to click just this one individual cell. From the drop-down, I have the ability to split that into many different things. I'm going to split it into 3 by 3, really get it crowded in there. Now, within that, I can take that one individual cell and I can fill it with one color. Oops, fill color. And I can take another cell. Made these pretty skinny, haven't I? Let's make it a little bit bigger. Take another cell and I can make it a different color. Okay, this is a neat feature as well. You can delete individual cells to create crossword puzzles or customized tables. So let's see what that looks like. So I take this cell, and from the drop-down, I say delete cells. It's supposed to be deleted, right? Well, we can see the background behind it, which seems to indicate that it's been deleted, but you still have the border of the cell, and that's because the other cells around it have not been deleted. If I take a cell on the outside, and I delete it, now you can see that it's actually being deleted. And through this technique, we can create crossword puzzles and all sorts of neat features. Okay, we've talked a little bit about some of the text features, indenting them incrementally, but let's look at some of these other. Making the text vertical, adjusting the line spacing, or creating a default font for your table. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in some text. I'm going to double click on that cell, put in some text, and now I can, of course, change my font right there. I can also work with the font over here. Now, from this drop down, it's the same thing as going over here to the properties when we're on the text style. Okay, we have the ability to make the font vertical. Okay, so you can see it better. I'm going to use this technique over here. I select my text and I say make it vertical. And so now it's automatically resized to fit the cell, but it is vertical. Okay, we are also talking about adjusting the line spacing. So let's get to 2 lines. So now, if I highlight that text, I go to my properties, I can make it bullets, I can number it, but if I want to adjust the line spacing, probably the easiest way to do that would be over here under these properties. If you scroll down a little bit, the bottom left-hand corner you can see line spacing. Now I'm going to take it from 1 point to a 2-point line space. So now I've just double spaced. Pretty neat. We'd also talked about a default font for the table. So let's create a new table for this one. So right now if I start typing, it's going to go with the default font that has been selected for the theme that I have used in this notebook file. Now if I select another, I change the font. It's going to change that. So let's say we want a default font so that if the font is different than the default font for our theme or what we're typically using, the default in Notebook, we can do that. So I highlight the whole table and I go over to the properties and the text style, and from the drop down I say let's do one that we can actually recognize. We're going to go with Chiller. So it changes those to Chiller because I did it after the fact, but now anytime I type it's going to use Chiller. That doesn't mean that I can't change it if I want to something else, but it's going to maintain the default font unless I override it. Okay. Alright, make the cells the same size, height, and width. Now, this is a new feature as well. We had talked before about how it maintained the proportions. But what if we want to work with that and change it around a little bit? From the drop down, you see I can adjust the size. So I'm going to, in this case, make the cells square. Now all the cells are squared off. Pretty neat. In this table, I'm going to adjust the size and I'm going to make them all the same height. Or the same width. Now we've got a little bit of overlap going there. Remember, you can't just drag and move a table one at a time. You have to select the whole table. There we go. Alright. I can also, from my size, make it all the same size. Now, this is important because one of the last features I want to point out, the ability to format multiple cells simultaneously. It needs to be done when the cells are set to the same size or when you've just inserted the table and it's set at its default settings. So if I try to select multiple cells now, I can select them because this has been set to the same size. But here I'm trying to select multiple cells just by left clicking and dragging across, and it's not letting me do that. So what I'm going to have to do is from the drop down, my size is already adjusted to the same size. Let's try going vertically. There we go. So vertically it looks like it's going to let me do that. And holding down Control won't let me select multiple ones. And holding down Shift won't let me select multiple ones. If I click off the table and then I left click and drag, I can select multiple ones. Alright, so let's try that one more time. Insert a new table. All the defaults should be in place. I left click across, I can select multiple ones, and I can format those all at the same time. So let's say I want my line color to be this, or my fill color, my line color to be this, and my text to be this. So I've formatted multiple cells at the same time. This is a great time saver. But let's say I insert another table, and with this one I work with the size a little bit. I'm going to make these resize them a little bit. Now I adjust the size. I'm going to say I want them to be the same height. Okay, that worked. So let's undo. Let's say I want them to be the same size. And that worked as well. And now let's make them, looks like they're the same width already. Let's make them square. Okay. So I guess the moral of the story here is that when you are working with formatting multiple cells at the same time, if it doesn't give you the ability to select multiple cells with the left click and drag, it's probably because your size needs to be adjusted. Either it needs to be made the same size or the cells need to be squared, but it works much better with symmetrical cells. Another technique that seems to be helping quite a bit is when you click off, let's say we've selected the table or the cell, and I try to move it, or I try to select multiple cells. All it's doing is moving the whole table for me. Or trying to move the text. So instead click off of the table and then left click and drag to select multiple cells and format accordingly. Okay, if you have any questions, as usual, I'd be more than happy to come in and work with you one-on-one. This has been Working with Tables in Smart Notebook 11.